Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I want to start by introducing myself. I'm a young 3D artist which is trying to break it into the gaming industry. On this channel, I will be sharing my journey into creating my portfolio, for which I will be modeling, sculpting, and texturing game-ready assets and environments. I just want to say that whether you're starting out or looking to pick up some tips, this channel will be all about diving into the process, learning together, and having fun with 3D. Um, the first couple videos are going to be a lot more presentational rather than educational, let's say. It all depends on how the videos will pick up and how the channel will grow if it grows. If it's getting views and you guys want to be seeing more tutorial style videos, I will definitely go more into that and delve deeper into my work process. But for today, I wanna I will be texturing this kitchen part of this auto shop interior. So the project that I'm currently working on is an abandoned auto shop somewhere on Route 66. I want to say that the exterior is completely modeled and textured. It's already finished. And I apologize for just starting things sort of in the middle. But, it is what it is. I have more projects coming soon. So obviously, you know, we will get to more modeling and texturing down the line. But as I said, in this video, I'll be texturing this kitchen part of the interior. I'll take you through everything from preparing the model for exporting to Substance Painter to the texturing process, and finally, should be showing you the finished result. So stick around and let's just jump right into it. So basically, before exporting, you need to make sure that you have a low poly and a high poly mesh. Of course, it works perfectly fine with just low poly depending on what you're working with, but you usually have a high poly mesh. So this is the low poly mesh. It needs to be completely optimized and ready for a game to just be put in a game engine. As you can see, the poly count is extremely low at 734 triangles. And yeah, triangles are fine by the way. Don't worry about it. So you need to take your low poly and your high poly, which you need to make sure that every single low poly and high poly asset share the exact same name. So if this is one asset, it is have the same name as your low poly. The only difference is that you can add a little HP or high at the end, and then on your low poly you can have a little LP or low, depending on how you want to work. So when you have these two, all you need to do is export them into we'll just export them and then put them inside Substance Painter, which is what I'm using for texturing and then what I will be showing you today. So let's just jump right into that. So here we are in Substance Painter. So as I said, what we need to do is create a new project and import our low poly mesh. Here it is, kitchen low poly. You need to select your texture resolution. I'm using 4K textures for this, because this is going to be the sort of the highest LOD or level of detail of the model. So when you import it, you get this. So what you have to do now is just simply go to texture set settings and bake the mesh maps. So when baking your mesh maps, again, you select your output size 4K, click on this little icon and add your high poly mesh. Also enable anti-aliasing and match by mesh name. Now by default, it's set to low and high, which I'm using LP and HP, so I just need to change this and everything is fine, everything is matching. So what I usually do is right after this, I just click on bake selected textures and then I go right into texturing. So here it is, everything is perfectly textured. So this is what we call a high poly to low poly bake. It creates all of these maps. These maps are essentially images that hold information that is represented with color. So you have things like normal map, which is all of these details that our low poly images don't have, for example. So when you have that done, I usually like to start things off with deleting this layer and then adding an ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is basically the shadows that are created when objects interact with each other. For example, as you can see, the whole thing is looking very flat because objects are just sort of sticking on there. So how do we add an ambient occlusion map? We add a fill layer, we right click on it, add bitmap mask, and use the ambient occlusion. Oh my days, am I gonna spell this right today? Ambient occlusion that is already generated for creating the map. So on its own, it didn't do anything. So what you need to do is you need to add a levels. So adding levels and moving this around will change things for you. Except of course you need to first give it some color. So I don't like to give it a black color. I usually give it like a really dark red or brownish. Then by moving this around, you see that the things change. So let me make it more precise to show you what I mean. So these lines, these white outlines are essentially the parts that need to be dark. So just invert it, and then I just reset it. I don't try to do it. I don't try to overdo it. I don't want it to be nice, subtle, and natural. So this is the first thing I do, and then I name it ambient occlusion. So when that's done, I start working on one of the all of the objects that are in my scene. So in this case, I'm just gonna start working with the wood. So just type wood. This is how I always work. I start with an already created smart material, then I use it to build up on it. So I'm just gonna be explaining really briefly the texturing of the wood, but the process is pretty much more or less the same for everything else. So just drag it here. It creates a folder. Click on this little square, holding Alt. Click on your object to isolate it, essentially apply it only this mesh. So this is what we have. So here on out, we just need to start thinking about how to make this more realistic. So this is a old kitchen counter. So we need dirt or dust. So that's simply be done by adding a paint layer, giving it a black mask, then adding a generator, then using a dirt generator, which is this one. Now this is going to have these white things. And then from here, you can essentially control the amount of dirt that we have. So first of all, I like to start off considerably small. Again, I don't want to be overdoing anything. Uh, let's say something like that. And then just give it color. Let's say like this brown, and then just make it darker to give it some contrast. Then I add a roughness channel, and I make it completely matte. So we can have difference in the roughness. Now it's not visible yet because the base color on its own is considerably matte, but if we make it glossier, you're going to be seeing difference with when we move the light around. And that will create this variation in the roughness of the material, which is something that you need to be looking at. You want to have variation, you want to have damage, you want to have lighter areas, darker areas. So the next thing that I usually do is let's say this is step one, the base there, then I would add another layer. Actually, I might even copy this layer, Control C, Control V. There 2, remove this, give it a paint layer, and pick a nice dirt sort of paint, like this one for example, it doesn't really matter. And then you just start painting, you can change the color, maybe make it slightly darker, change the size of the brush, and then just start painting areas that will have more dust down here, for example, and just essentially paint these places. I don't really like this brush. So just look for one you like this one I think is better. This one is sort of, this one was way too hard. We want to make this like softer and subtler. So just when texturing, just think which areas would be affected more by damage, which will have more dirt, and which would be lighter, which would be darker. So this is pretty much it. You add layers, you add black masks to it, and you add different generators or paint to it, and then you just paint, and you have all sorts of brushes and different we have these called alphas in here, and texture that you can use at your disposal. So here it is, the final textured uh, result. This is what it looks like in the render view of Substance Painter. So let me now go over the textures a little bit and explain what I did. So let's start with the wood because it was the first thing that I showed you. So the wood, as I said, I started with the base material that I really liked, and then I just started adding dirt. So the first dirt that I added, you saw, was with the dirt generator, and in these areas. Then I added more down here, added more at the back here, in the corner, on top of shells here underneath it. Essentially, again, areas that would accumulate more dirt and would be more likely to not have been cleaned for a longer period of time. Now, yes, the auto shop is abandoned, but that still means that certain parts of the objects in it would be dustier than others. So I added a couple variations of dirt with different colors. Then I added what's called a gradient. So a gradient is essentially just a line. They use a position generator to add a darker color to the kitchen counter down here, essentially to create a smoother transition between this object and the floor. Then I hand painted these areas, these sort of lighter areas, which I usually like corners like this. You would see damage and more wear because that's where there would be friction in the. For example, this is one object. This cabinet is one object, and then everything around is another object. There's friction between it. It creates damage. The edges are also usually damaged as well. So I used a metal edge generator, which works perfectly fine for us. And I've given them, all of them, I've given them some height, except this one, clearly. Just add some variation in the depth, some subtle variation in the depth of the whole thing. On top of here, I painted some um, cup stains, which have different roughness values than the counter. Again, have more variation. This is really important. This is what creates realism. It's about things being disorganized, messy, and different. If everything is perfectly tidy, perfectly clean, it just looks fake. It does not look real. Then added some hand painted some stains on top of the board with different roughness, different colors. You can see you have some lighter colors in the edges, darker colors here where things have been cut left like that. So that's the wood pretty much. And the same principle follows. So the next one is white plastic. As you can see, I used a plastic shader, plastic material, which is this one, plastic dusty. So it already comes with the dust, but obviously I do more on it, like in the corners, and I hand painted more in these crevices down here at the back. Essentially places, again, as I said, that would be harder to reach. They would accumulate more dust over time. So when the outer shop was abandoned, they were already dirty to begin with. So they will be dirtier than the rest of the object. Added some grease sort of oil stains here where the guy that worked at the other shop would have touched. I mean, it's another shop, makes sense to add some grease there. This is glass. It was created by using an opacity channel, which you wouldn't have by default. So you need to click on this little sphere, click here and select this one, which is PBR method work without the blending. And then when you go to your texture settings, you can click on this plus icon and add opacity, which is here. So then, how did I create the glass? How did I paint this part of it? Well, realistically, the model itself has a polygon here. So I use this icon, which is called a polygon fill, and just clicked on it, and all of the glass settings we just applied to it. So that is the same logic with everything that is white plastic, exact same thing. Start with the base material and then just paint on top of it to add realism. Like in the metal and the sink in particular, you see there's a lot that has been painted on it. There's a lot of dirt that I've hand painted. and added in the corners where you would see more dirt. I had painted like water, stains, splatters, drips here. Also, you can see slight color variation. This is from the calcification. So when your sink gets wet and the water dries out, over time, if you don't clean your sink, calcium builds up on top of it. It's a mineral, so that's why it's sort of bluish, greenish tint. But then again, roughness variation here at the bottom to create the difference between the material and the water. This is a normal map detail, which from distance looks realistic. And yeah, that is pretty much the metal. That is like the main object that has the metal texture on it. So moving on, we have the black plastic, which is this, the handles, exact same detail, nothing new. I'd say a more interesting thing to touch upon would be the glasses, these ones. So the way I made them is by creating a base color. Maybe I should, there you go. By creating a base color and then basically creating a glass. So opacity, I mean, you need to play around with this, see what you like, see what works for you, and very low roughness. And then again, polygon fill, just fill them up. Then into glasses, you can see there's a lot of there are a lot of stains on them. There's another gradient at the bottom here for better blending between the objects and the counter. So yeah, that is pretty much it. The glass I just forgot to mention. You want to create a you want to simulate refraction, which is the way light bounces, so passes through objects. So the way I did is I created a fill layer and I only gave it a high channel, and in the high channel I used a cloud texture, just type clouds, and I use this one because it's not that hard. Like you see, this one is a lot more dense in details. This one is just softer. So essentially, it changes the way the light reflects. So you can see this is pretty, how do I say, like smooth reflection, but with the refraction, you get to see some deformation in the glass, a little bit here and there, but not too much, not overdo it. So everything is more realistic. Yeah. So this is basically the whole texturing process. It's not that complicated. It doesn't take a lot to get it to this level. It's more about thinking what makes something realistic and then trying to do it. I can of course keep on, doing more here, keep on tweaking textures, but I don't think that it would look better necessarily than this. So when you're done with this thing, all you need to do is export your textures. So how do you do that? You press on File, Export Textures. You select your folder, and then here you select your preset. Since everything is going to be rendered and lit up inside Unreal Engine. I'm using Unreal Engine preset. There is no Unreal Engine 5 in here. I don't think so. Maybe I'm using an old version of Substance Painter. But yeah, I'm using the Unreal Engine preset because it's going to be rendered in Unreal Engine. Sometimes I have problems with it. So things like the opacity is not handled well inside Blender. So I click on here, I select my preset, and then I add a gray channel, and then I click on what I want. So I want opacity, gray, and I just drag it here, the gray channel. I take this whole name, copy and place it here, and then just go latest opacity, and then export from here. So here we are exporting. So when everything is done, we go inside Blender and we assign the textures. So here we are now inside Blender, and we need to assign the textures to this mesh. So just click on one of them. They all have the exact same texture, kitchen. Get this little plus in the corner, click and drag, change this to shader editor. Then here we'll be using something called a node wrangler add-on. So go to edit preferences, uh, add-ons, and type node wrangler and just enable it. If you don't have it in there, you can also click on get extensions and then search for node wrangler. So when you have it enabled, you press Control Shift T and you get this window to open up. So here you need to find your textures folder. You select your textures. This is opacity. This is what opacity is. I have two opacities. Just delete one of them. And import your textures. And there you go. And then they are going to be loaded inside your Blender scene. And now you can see that the opacity is not working particularly well. So yeah, let me find these bitches again. Here they are. So lighting, let's just take care of the lighting first of all. Make things easier to see. And yeah, this is what we have inside Blender. This, as you can see, is transparent slightly. It will be working a lot better inside Unreal Engine, but this is just how you can inspect your textures inside Blender before going inside Unreal. The reason I'm showing it to you is that first of all, it gives you a good base idea of what things are going to look like. But I also want to talk about something else, which is the roughness, which sometimes Blender does not necessarily handle well. So sometimes the roughness may not seem right to you inside Blender, but it will look good inside Unreal. Yeah. So this is basically everything for me today. This is all I have to show you. Again, I apologize for just jumping in the middle of the whole project, but there will be other things that we modeled, sculpted, and textured. So I will touch upon those parts of the process at some point. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you've watched, I hope you have a nice day or evening whenever you're watching this. If you find the sort of idea of the channel and the things that I'm going to be showing you entertaining and useful, subscribe and stay tuned. Yeah. So bye.